And welcome back to Bunters Yard. So today we are going to be doing a quick weathering on a container, and these are the Daypole 00 gauge containers. We've got quite a lot. We are a Daypole stockist here at the shop and on the website now, and I quite like these when they're weathered, and they fit with the display that we've got. Which I'll show you a bit at the end. We're taking these to the Chatham Model Railway show in a few weeks, and then on to Shoebury this year. And we've got a particular way of displaying them. Like I say, I'll show you that at the end. So we need to get lots and lots of these weathered. They're going to be available on the website as well. So if you don't want to pop down to the show, if you're not nearby, you can order them on the website. There's quite a few on there already, and we're going to be adding them all the time. So let's take a look at these, and then we'll quickly weather one in our particular sort of style that we do. So let's break these open. So these come typically in pairs. Get rid of that. One and the other. So they're quite nicely made. The doors open at the end. Honestly, they do open. Obviously quite tight, but yeah, there we go. You can open them and display it or pose it like that if you want to. The handles that go on the end, the locks, they're a separate fitment. Now I'd suggest, if you're going to paint yours, is fit them afterwards, because it just makes painting and weathering in there that much easier. So I think we'll do this one because it'll be easy to see on the video what we're going to do with it, and we shall make a start. So the first thing we are going to do is we're just going to add on just a touch of this rust. Now you don't need to use this particular rust. This is from a company called Ammo, and this is like a thick sort of paste with I guess it's an iron filing inside, which actually just goes rusty, which is nice. You can use activators. They're quite expensive. I think these are like £9 or £10 for a tiny bottle. It should last a long while, but it will just naturally rust anyway. I think you just leave it to the atmosphere, but it comes out the correct colour, and then it will just weather itself. So we're going to use this. If you haven't got this, it doesn't matter. You can just use a dab of brown paint or an oil paint if you've got brown oil paints as well. Just obviously they need quite a bit longer to dry. This will be dry in just a few minutes. So we're going to do this in a sec, and then we'll leave the video off while it dries properly, and then we'll crack on with the rest of the process. So let's do this bit first. Now these, as I say, are quite thick, so need to give it a proper shake. Well, that's kind of a good start. I have had it give it a shake before we started anyway, but let's have a look inside. So you won't be able to see, but it's quite thick inside. But we're going to add it with just a small brush. Generally, we find what's in there is going to be good enough for us. So let's use what's left in the lid. And on the containers, we need to do these. So these edges where they all the locks. I'm sure they've got a technical name. Where they would normally sort of lock the interlock in towards each other, different containers and so on. I'm just going to go around all of those sides and on the top. And that's about it. Now if you want to add more in, you know, if you want to simulate any damage anywhere, now's the time. We'll leave that there. We'll let it dry. We'll come back in about 5 minutes. So this is dried. This just takes literally a few minutes. As I say, we're not going to use the activator on this. It will react a bit in the air anyway, but it's just left a nice little texture and a colour. Next step is we are going to add in a wash. Now I've never been a fan of washes. I've used them on a few builds, but never really got to grips with it for whatever reason or other. It's never seems to work, but on this one I feel a bit happier. So we're just going to, this always looks awful when you do this, we're just going to colour it in with this, cover as much as you can. This just looks terrible when you do this, but anyway, it's a means to an end, as they say. There we go. So especially to get, and you know, along the edges and down the sides, make sure that's all full. Get rid of that brush for a sec. Let's move that out of the way. And then I like to just wipe it all off. Well, obviously we're not going to wipe it all off because there's going to be bits in between that just won't wipe off because the cloth won't get to them. So if we do our downward strokes, it just looks like everything's sort of washed down with the rain and that sort of thing. So it's given a nice sort of rust colour to that. If we look at the other side, it looks totally different. So already sort of, you know, fairly nicely weathered already. You could probably just get away with that if that's all you wanted to do. Let's crack on. Let's move the that back in there, and we'll carry on with all the other sides. And the top, we're not going to do the bottom, obviously. Not going to see that. Depends, you know, if you've got a particular scene, you might want the bottom done if it's being lifted or hoisted. That's not what we're doing. Now, if you haven't got washes, you don't want to use these, you can use oil paints if you've got those. They work as well. Or even, you know, really thin acrylic would work. You have to really mix it down so it's very, very runny and so it doesn't dry too quickly. And then do the same. I've got this wash which I've had for ages and never used it much, and I thought, well, give it a try, and it seems to have worked out right. And then the end with the doors, I'm going to do that exactly the same, but you can imagine that if you had the handles and stuff on there, it'd be very difficult to sort of wipe the excess off without breaking the handles, because they're quite a delicate little thing. If you want to, you can mix it up a little bit, and rather than use a rust, you can use like a black as well. Just be careful with the black, not to have it too heavy. It just ends up looking like grease rather than grime. So, but we're just going to do in this colours today. to add a few extra runs in, you can. We can paint these on either with a brush a bit later on if that's what you choose to do. We'll leave that particular part there. And we'll just have a bit of a clean up and we'll come back for the next stage. So while that dries, we're just going to remove these from the sprue. Just be careful with the top that you cut in the right place, because there's a little sort of lock catch thing at the top there. Just cut those 4. So if we fit these before we carry on with the weathering, these will get a touch of weathering as well. So that's why we're going to add them in at this point. So with the Daypole containers, these come in different colours. Most of the time they're silver, but other containers, they're coloured the same as the sort of body. So the P&O ones are yellow, and the Argos one I think was, or the Co-op one was blue, I think. So they're all slightly different colours. All primarily they are silver. Let's just get out of the way, and then we shall glue them on. So because of the way these are made, they should only fit on one way. Well, kind of. You need to remember that the lock sort of points in that particular way. The handle at the bottom points in that particular way, away from the centre of the doors. And if you look at the other side, so they are sided, so they'll only go on one way. Just remember that the handle goes towards the bottom and it points away from the centre of the door. So we'll just glue those in place, just using as our super glue, and we'll come back to you in a sec. So if I'm super gluing anything small, such as these, I tend to have the glue on a piece of coloured tape. Just lets me know that the glue is there, rather than trying to get the glue, get the glue on the ends of these bits. For the nozzle, although I've got a little small nozzle on there, I like to use this, and then you can just dip it in. Just get enough that you need, and then pop that into place. Now with those fitted, we can carry on with the weathering. We're going to use this colour here, which is Vallejo Smoke. We used this lots of times before. It's just a nice sort of, I wouldn't call it a smoke colour, but it's kind of a nice grimy colour. And it's not a thick paint, it's got a sort of transparency to it. So it creates just a sort of a haze or that sort of thing. Now this is a model colour, which means this needs thinning, and I like to make it a bit thinner than I usually do, because then it just gives that that sort of see-through grime appearance. So let's get some of that in the in the airbrush. We just need a small amount. We're only doing a couple of these at the moment, so literally just a few drops in the bottom, if you can see that. And then it needs to be thinned. We use the Vallejo airbrush thinners. And then just give it a little stir with a brush, just to mix it all up. I know some people mix these in pots and cups and all sorts of things. We're just trying to save some money by mixing it right, but then you've got to pay for the pots. I find that if you mix it in there with a brush and then give it a bit of back pressure, it will mix it quite nicely. There we go. We only used a tiny amount. There's literally, not even pennies worth in there. So, just doing this quite lightly. The idea is we're going to just trace around the outline. Just putting there we go. Just putting a kind of a shadow around the edge. And if you want to do any runs, you can do those. Just to add a bit of an accent. Now I'm going to do the top as well. Just mainly around the edge, I think. I'll leave that there and we'll change the colour. Now, a bit of arse there, I change the colours in my brush. So, let's get this so you can see it. So, there's not a lot in there anyway. So, let's just use a pipette and we'll just get rid of that. We've got a pot with lots of waste colours in. And then we'll give it a little wash with clean water. Clear that one out. And then we shall blast that little bit onto some tissue. Just clear that out. Give it a little wipe. The reason we're doing it this way is because we're not doing a massive colour change and we're not cleaning up at the end of the day. It's just we're going from one shade to another. And the next colour we're going to use is just an earth colour. So this particular one is BS Dark Earth. Not sure what BS stands for. Probably not what I think it does. But it's just one of the earth colours that Vallejo put out. And this is a model there. So that means that we don't need to thin it down unless you want to with thinners. You can tell these normally quite readily because it's got a black lid. So the black lid means I don't need thinning. So let's just get a little bit of that in the airbrush. Again, we don't need a lot. Just a bit of back pressure just to mix it up a bit. And this one we're just going to go along the bottom edge. And maybe up the sides just a little bit. And on the top, I think we'll just do a patch sort of down the middle. Towards the end. wash that out in a second, but that's pretty much all we're going to do. Now we can add a bit of black on there if you want to do some more sort of low lights and a bit more grime, but apart from that, I think this one's done, and we'll add this to the display now. Let's show you what that looks like. So we've 3D printed a container ship, which will take about 40 or so of these containers. So we'll be taking this to the show, and it'll be on display in the shop as well. And all containers will sit on there, and they can just choose one or two or as many as you like, and see them sort of in situ. So that's it for this video. I hope that was useful. We'll crack on with creating a few more of these. They're available on the website. If you want to pop on there, you can order them rather than coming to the show. Apart from that, we'll see you next time at Bunters Yard. Bye for now.